All right, there's a few people already waiting in the chat. That's exciting. Well, we've got a lot to talk about, and we've got about 2 hours. We could probably fudge the 2 hour limit, but definitely we've got no more than 2 hours and 15 minutes to talk about a lot of stuff that Mr. NPC 3.14 has been doing a lot of research and but not a lot of research, also God-given information. So welcome, NPC.
Mini meows, folks, and this is a special edition because there's a lot going on, and I needed to share.
And I'm looking forward
And
to
yes,
it.
fresh off the press, I guess you could say. A lot of this stuff I just come across today, even, so very excited to share it all. A lot of it came together real nicely, so yeah, it does feel like the spirit was involved. So we'll kind of get to witness that together this evening.
Amen. Well, just get
Yeah.
started then, I guess.
I can go ahead and just share the screen. Give me a moment here.
That's okay. You have a moment because I'm doing something else really quick.
Bear with me. I'm trying to do it right now. Okie dokie. That's the one. Alrighty. Thank you for being patient. I normally would do this while the song was going on, but we went the song to save time. Okay, can you see the...
I can.
All right, folks. I'm going to be starting from the right and closing in to the end here. So I know that's a lot of tabs. So we're going to go a little bit maybe fast tonight, but that may not be so bad. I mean, some nights I kind of drone on reading a lot, right? So the goal this evening is to try and hit all these topics and share all the links with you so that you can go through them on your own. And then if we get the opportunity next weekend after Gary, we'll revisit some of these things and kind of do a retrospective on Hanukkah, which will also be after the 21st Great Conjunction. So we can kind of debrief on that too, but we'll be talking about that tonight a little bit too. So anyway, let me go ahead and drop this link, and I'm going to read a tad bit out of Daniel 9, because I know that you and Ben study Daniel 9, or Daniel rather, so I don't want to go on ever long about Daniel, but this stuff does. But this, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the chat situated. It's like big. You probably can't see the chat.
Nope.
Yeah,
I just see your screen that with the
hold on.
Daniel there. We're fine. We, like you said,
get this.
Usually the song is going on here. I got something I got to fix here anyway. Hold on.
So what I did was since I had so many tabs, I made sure to stretch this all the way to the right, and then I got the chat underneath this, but taking up like the bottom part of the screen. So that's why it's a little bit shorter. So I'll make it bigger for you guys there. Okay. Maybe take it down just a tad. So I only see like the last two entries on the chat, but I'll try to check it periodically. But this is a way to do it without having to toggle back and forth. Okay, so in Daniel 9 here, let's go down to this period of time here to finish your holy city for your people for our determined 70 weeks, iniquity, and make reconciliation for sins, to make an end of the transgression. Remember, they're wanting to do this red heifer. For what reason? Do you recall, Aaron?
The red heifer so they can start doing the sacrifices again?
Yeah, it's to purify the land, right? So we're talking about this end of this period. So I find it no coincidence that they're wanting to do that, right? The transgression and the holy, and to anoint and prophesy a vision, and to seal up everlasting righteousness, and to bring in of the command the going forth, that from and understand, therefore know most 7 weeks the Prince Messiah until Jerusalem, and build to restore, and the wall, the street, which I thought it was strange that it said Wall Street right here,
Right.
and shall be built again in 260 and weeks. I'm almost finished here. I'm just trying to get this across. Messiah shall be cut off, and 260 the weeks and after times, and even in troublesome, who is come of the prince, people shall destroy in the sanctuary and the city for himself, but not desolations, and determine of war the end until with a flood, and the end of it shall be the week, but in the middle, that's where I had to get to. So we're coming up on the 3.5 years from the child being born, with the dragon waiting for the child to be born. If we consider that 9/23/2017, the fulfillment of Revelations 12:1, then we're looking at this middle of the week kind of thing here too, because 3.5 is half of 7, right? So it's talking about this covenant with, and for a week with many a covenant shall confirm, shall be one who makes desolate of abominations the wing, and on an offering sacrifice he shall bring an end to the sacrifices. Even until the consummation which is determined is poured out among the desolate, which I think is talking about the vials and these vaccines, the plagues, you know what I mean? So I just wanted to get that out because it talks in here about the end of the 70 weeks, which refers back to the parable of the fig. We'll reference that again in a minute, but in a different context, in a different chapter of Matthew. And then this also talks about the abominations, which again is brought up in a different part of Daniel. And so, again, coming off the Hanukkah episode from last Friday, Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth was whom had the temple made desolate, right? And also, just like Jezebel was going after the bride of Christ. Okay, so we can go ahead and get rid of that now. Oh, I had a news article here. Sorry, I meant to start with this. I probably meant to put the Daniel thing back in here somewhere and forgot, but I did want to mention this real quick. So I'll get right back into the Bible study in a moment after we mention this. Sorry to be disjointed.
You
That's
can
probably
stop saying sorry because we're doing
I
just
think that's the
fine.
only time I did that on accident, actually. It was probably like the last thing I brought up. Anyway, here's this. Electors are meeting today to formally choose Biden as next president. So, this is supposed to be happening today. The electoral are going to meet. I'm not following this very closely because I really don't care.
Likewise.
Our kingdom's not of this earth. It's a distraction in my opinion. But I did want to share it because it's relevant because they announced the vaccines and everything starting on Friday, which was Hanukkah. And then they started pushing everything out today, which is the same time as this. And so with the eclipse also being today, I figured it was worthwhile to go ahead and mention because I think this was probably on purpose. Now, mind you, the eclipse is also traditionally seen as a wedding ring, right? So I think that this really is talking about the bride of Christ as it's being prepared. And so now I understand why I was shown Esther. I didn't really understand at the time, but now that I've had time to reflect on it and understand what the Spirit was really trying to show me, Esther was being prepared for a year, and before she was being brought before the king, who asked for her by name. And that's exactly what it says, is we'll be called by name before the king. So a lot of this started to tie together. Anyway, let me get rid of this article real quick. And let's get into this planetary stuff real quick. Let me see. We dip back into Bible study, like right here. Yeah. And then right here again. So I meant to put Daniel in there. But anyway, here's the December 21st Great Conjunction. I'm sure everybody's been hearing about this, but we have some interesting things to share this evening about this. Meow, meow. It seems as though only be separated by a very small margin, less than a degree. So you can go through here and read about it in a technical sense, but really it's going to amount to them appearing in the sky like this. And it's going to be in the Capricorn constellation. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth in a moment. But yes, on this day, it'll be 0.1 degrees apart. And I've already been able to see it in the sky. It's fairly obvious. But anyway, this is supposed to have been the same sign that appeared in the sky during the birth of Jesus, or conception of Jesus, however you want to look at it. The three wise men story that we've heard is supposed to have been referring to this particular birth star in the sky. So as you can see, that's where we're getting this. So I'm going to zip right through this and go into some of the features. We can see here that Jupiter features, what do you think this looks like?
An eye.
Yes, known as the Great Red Spot. It is a storm. But here's something very interesting about this is that we have this great conjunction. Saturn has an eye too. It's at the South Pole. And this is the South Pole eye right here. So it too is a storm. So we got this big red eye, and then we have one on the South Pole. So we got two eyes in the sky converging on the 21st as well. And on the North Pole of Saturn is where we find the hexagonal shape. Two pyramids, one inverted upon the other, which some say is the Star of David, but a lot of folks say instead it's like the Star of Rephaim. But either way, it does represent the flag of Israel, and so it's interesting in that regard. Let me X that. Just trying to free up tab space here. And okay, here's an interesting article I wanted to share real quick. There's a lot in this article, so we're not going to cover it in depth. I want to be able to read other things instead of choking on these huge articles. But anyway, this one goes into quite a bit of depth about things like goddesses, Columbia, etc. I think it's at the top here is where I want it. Yeah. So I noted the date here, June 30th, 2017. This guy was talking about this stuff way back. And this is right after Revelation 12:1 too. So this gentleman was really looking forward. I think it was a gentleman. I don't actually know who wrote it. But anyway, Juno was a spacecraft flying over Jupiter's Great Red Spot on July 10th, which Juno's feast day, we'll be looking into that in just a minute too. This July 7th was the feast for Juno Caprotina, where ancient Roman festivals were celebrated on July 7th in favor of female slaves. During this solemnity, they ran about beating themselves with their fists and with rods, but none but women assisted in the sacrifices offered at this feast. Plutarch's Life of Numa and Life of Camillus offer two possible origins for the feast, or the famous Nanae Capitanae, or Pavlofugium. Firstly, and in Plutarch's opinion most likely, it commemorates the mysterious disappearance of Romulus during a violent thunderstorm. Again, we have these two eyes as storms that interrupted an assembly in the Palus Caprae, Goat's Marsh. Secondly, it commemorates a Roman victory by Camillus over the Latins. According to minor tradition, a Roman serving maid or slave dressed as a noblewoman and surrendered herself to the Latins as a hostage. That night she climbed a wild fig tree, caprificius, literally goat fig, and gave the Romans a torchlight signal to attack. So I wanted to read that because this great conjunction is going to be occurring in Capricornus, which is emblematic of the month we're going into, which is also the time of Epiphany, which means manifestation. And so if you remember from last Friday, Antiochus Epiphanes was his name. We may very well see some of these things manifest. Okay, so let me see if there was. Oh yeah. It looks like the occult circles of the world are going to get excited to get the closest they've ever gotten to an all-seeing eye of Jupiter on July 10th. This happens almost 1 week from the 1-year anniversary of the satellite Juno's launch to Jupiter's orbit. The 1-year anniversary is on July 4th. It is very fitting, right? Of course, I just showed you because of the festival. And this is just 3 days, July 13th rather, from when the nutcases celebrate the birth of Osiris. So I didn't know that, actually, which is strange because Jupiter in this case would represent like Horus, and then the Saturn would be the Ra, so the two eyes. And so anyway, I wanted to share this down here. Now, in reference to Juno, after looking after the women of Rome, that is referring to a feast in honor of that, the festival of, I read this already, but I'm reading it in a different context here on the site. Nonne Capritene, because it says something a little bit different. The nuns of the wild fig was held on July 7th. And there's a reason I'm talking about this, because parable of the fig in Matthew 24:32 was held on July 7th rather. The Capritania, or Feasts of Juno Capritania, were ancient Roman festivals which were celebrated on July 7th in favor of female slaves. Okay, so another interesting festival for Juno was the Festival of Juno Regia, which fell on September 1st, followed on the 13th in the same month by Juno Regia Capitolina. Interesting dates for old Juno and Jupiter, might you say. These two festivals were determined because of the preeminence of Jupiter, and this year alone you can see that this symbology that NASA and others of the occult are using. Yeah. Well, that's the thing. A few years ago he was already saying this, but now it seems even more relevant. And he points that out in the article. He looks far ahead and talks about the conjunctions. So let's see if we can get down to that part. I think we're close to it. Oh, yeah, he even has that coin that we discovered, by the way.
Oh yeah, the 1776 coin.
Below is a coin struck in Boston in 1776 by Paul Revere himself, depicting Goddess Liberty, sitting on a globe with her trademark cap, holding her trademark rod in one hand and the scales of justice in the other. Then right after the war in Connecticut and New York, essentially the same image was minted, except the cap is on the rod, which you've probably seen this image a lot. She's usually wearing a red cap and sometimes has bare breasts. Also a traditional image of Libertas, which is, it's French really. Lady Liberty comes from France. Only now her title was Immunis Columbia. And of course, France is the one that gave us the Statue of Liberty. So that's who that is. Okay, here's where he talks about the convergence. And so he says here, the last thing I wanted to briefly bring up is the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction for 3 days on December of 2020. I've mentioned this quite a few times in the past, and if it's not just me, others are mentioning the conjunction also. Jupiter is headed for a December 21st, 2020 conjunction with Saturn, when the pair will appear 10th of a degree apart. Meanwhile, the next Venus-Jupiter conjunction is November 13th, 2017. So as you can see, he dates it how far back this was. And then here's another part I wanted to share. But I wanted to point out something about this head-on collision with Saturn and Jupiter. They are literally 10th of a degree apart. And sorry, he keeps going on. Not only that, but this happens in Capricornus, the sea goat. If you know what scripture alludes to, you can definitely read between the lines. I think here he's talking about the fig. But that's not really what he wanted to bring up. He's talking about the new age of Aquarius as well. And sorry, this is not a really good article to read, but I would encourage folks to go through it. But I just wanted to get the gist out of the way. for that article. Let me make sure I don't close the chat. All right, so again, this is where we're going to be, is in Capricornus here coming up. And this pairs with the holiday. So I'm going to go share that. Because we're in basically the opposite time of that right now. So what the occultists typically do is they celebrate what's actually on the opposite. So what normal folks are doing is, I don't know what they consider profane, but what the occult, the hidden, is the opposite. So that's why it's focusing again on the opposite side of the zodiac. Okay, so let me get off that one. Okay, and let's swing into this real quick. This is some COVID related stuff. All right. So this is where we're going to start getting into some wild stuff. I mean, it is already wild, I'm sure. But here we have Prime Minister. He's saying Wrexham Lab could be salvation. Well, you know what another word for salvation is, right, Aaron?
I don't recall.
Yeshua.
Oh, darn it. I'm going to lose a trivia game
It's okay.
for sure.
I'm just trying to interact. So basically, we're seeing him quote here, calling it this, and maybe that's a one-offer thing, right? But
No,
I
it's
found
not.
something else.
Pence calls it that too, doesn't he? Or no, he says it's a miracle. Never mind. Pence called it a miracle.
Well, that just fits right along with all this other stuff. So let me read this a little bit. Prime Minister Boris Johnson has said a Wrexham laboratory could provide salvation for humanity when it starts producing the coronavirus vaccines. Mr. Johnson visited Walked UK Limited on Monday, which he said could be making the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine if it is approved. The Prime Minister said, if we're lucky, quote, the vaccine could be available within weeks. It was very exciting and a moving moment, he added. The Wrexham plant has the capability to produce around 300 million doses of vaccine a year, and preparations to produce 150,000 vials a day of the vaccine have been underway for weeks. As the drugs were being developed, preparations for transferring large vats of vaccine into single-dose vials have been ramped up. Well, the good news is at least a single-dose vial doesn't have, or it's not supposed to have mercury in it, no thimerosal. The double-dose thing does. Just another little factoid to throw out there.
They're saying these things are going to be a miracle and salvation when they're 90 to 95% effective, but 99.97% of people are surviving this alleged disease that they have not isolated. And so how do you get a vaccine for a disease you've never isolated?
Yeah, and don't forget that Enza, equals giant. It's the word for giant.
That answer, I'll get that answer right on the trivia because I remember that.
I repeat that a lot. So let me X that one off. Excellent. Okay, now this is a YouTube video, and I actually only need to play like the last couple seconds of it. But to get the full context, I would encourage somebody to watch it on their own. It's very short.
I'm sorry. I dropped something and now I made a really loud noise. Apologize. Forgive me.
It's cool, man. We haven't started. So I'm going to try this out, and it worked last time that my video.
And if approved, should be used by all in the population. Yeah. Because I believe vaccination is likely to be the cornerstone among all the other measures to take to help us really control this pandemic.
So you heard it there, folks.
Cornerstone.
What did he say, Aaron?
Cornerstone.
He said the cornerstone. Now, let me show you something, because I was shown this a while back, but I didn't really know what to do with it. Who is the cornerstone, Aaron?
Jesus.
Yeshua. And he's salvation. He is the cornerstone. So they are literally using this language, I think, on purpose. It is really bizarre. I mean, it just doesn't. It has to be the spirit at work here, you know? It's just too much. So let me read a little bit of this, because remember, my name is Joshua. So I learn a lot of this stuff just because I was shown a bunch of stuff, you know, about myself even. Say, like, I don't know. It's just really bizarre learning this. So I need to share what I've learned. So Zechariah 3:8 says, "My servant, the branch and the stone." Remember what we talked about with branch last Friday, how the Navajo and some of the other folks, they would take the law or the message and they'd write it on a leather strip and wrap it around the branch, right? So only if somebody had your matching branch could they know your message, right? So this branch, this person is not only a branch from the stump, the root of David, the stump of Jesse, but a branch is also this military thing, this rod, right? And so the stone as well is what the temple is built upon. So Zechariah chapter 3 is a vision of Joshua, the high priest, standing before the angel of the Lord. He is standing because he is conducting his priestly duties, representing the nation Israel. This is found in 10 Deuteronomy 8 and 2 Chronicles 29 and 11. This not Joshua son of Nun, that's who conquered the land of Israel, whom we encounter in the book of Joshua. This Joshua is a type of high priest of Israel who is to come, because he and his priestly companions are said to be men symbolic of things to come. Satan is seen standing at the right hand of Joshua, accusing him before the angel of the Lord. This presence of Satan changes the scene from a priestly one to judicial. In other words, Satan is a persecuting attorney. Because of God's gracious love and choice of Israel, the angel of the Lord acquits Joshua. This is where the voting stones, the white stone with salvation, is your pass. It's given unto you. The basis of the rebuke is God's choice of Israel. Walvoord and Zuck note that in the figure before us, just as, quote, the high priest represented the entire nation of on the Day of Atonement, so here Joshua, the high priest, was accused and acquitted on behalf of the nation Israel. The acquittal took the form of removing the filthy garments and clothing Joshua with a clean garment. Hengistenberg notes the Messiah could be represented as the antitype of priesthood only so far as he was to effect in the most perfect manner the meditation expiation which had been partially effected by the latter. Just like Joshua, son of Nun, he wasn't supposed to speak the law, but only do it. The angel of the Lord is to be identified with the pre-incarnate Christ. He speaks as Lord and yet distinguishes himself from the Lord when he addresses Satan. Moreover, he virtually forgives sins. The Lord said to Satan, "The Lord rebuke you, Satan." And verse 4, the angel says, "See, I have taken your iniquity away from you and will clothe you with festal robes." Now listen, Joshua the high priest, you and your friends who are sitting in front of you, indeed, they are men who are a symbol, for behold, I am going to bring in my servant the branch. This is relating also to Isaiah 11:11, which have had the Spirit show me. Also, Esther never made sense till recently. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it. So, like, oh, sorry, I think I got ahead of myself. For behold, the stone that I have set before thee, Joshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. Talks about the 7 eyes, but in Esther, she got 7 handmaid servants. Well, this is to be emblematic of the 7 spirits of God, 7 virtues.
Weren't there 7 virgins too? Were there 7 virgins too, or the bridesmaids?
I'm not sure.
The bridesmaids or whatever, bridesmaids. Excuse me.
I only
the
read
oil.
A little bit. So, yeah. She had 7 maids.
So that's what I meant. Yeah.
Myrrh. They put myrrh and stuff on her for a whole year. She was being prepared.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking of the story of the preparation of the oil, the lanterns. I thought there were 7 of them as well. But anyway, don't let me keep interrupting.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That would relate. But anyway, go on.
And that's why I'm reading this stuff, because I only get shown some things. And so my hope is that when I read this, that people, it'll sow those seeds and they'll set off these chain reactions for other folks. So please share if this shows you anything. Share this in the Discord, please, so that we can learn from it. Okay, so let me go. For behold, the stone that I have set before Joshua, on one stone are 7 eyes. Behold, I will engrave an inscription on it, declares the Lord of hosts, and I will remove the iniquity of that land in one day. And that day, declares the Lord of hosts, every one of you will invite his neighbor to sit under his vine and under his fig tree. And remember, we talked about fig tree only having leaves or not, fruit. Right? Mm-hmm. And so this fig tree would be a fruitful one, I'm sure. Joshua and his companions prefigured the future cleansing of the nation. Of course, this future cleansing is linked to the one who comes in the future with 3 messianic titles. He is revealed here as my servant, the branch, and the stone. Well, look here at this picture. We got the shamash. That's what we call as the servant candle. Hold on a second.
I just learned this week. That's how I'm supposed to light all my other candles. Oh, he said hold on a second.
I think I got somebody at the door. Give me just a second.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I just learned about the shamash and my understanding of the Feast of Hanukkah as I've been lighting my candles this week and doing the blessings over the menorah that my mom gave me for my birthday, which was really well timed because Hanukkah is very early this year. So we're just trying it out. We'll be better at it next year. Yes, Barbara, I'm glad you're trying Discord because it's a great community. Don't get overwhelmed. If you need help with the notifications and everything, I can help you guys. So don't get overwhelmed and just leave the Discord. Some people just do that. Too many notifications. I can help you guys with that. So stay there and be patient with us. We can help you. Are you back?
Yeah. I got a text message and thought somebody was at the door, but it wasn't. Anyway, I would encourage folks to use Discord app. It's really handy, and you can even make your own private server to put all your own links and research and things like that. And it's really handy to have just to keep everything organized, because I can't even imagine trying to do all this information gathering and without that.
Yeah, let me explain real quick to people about that. That's why it overwhelms some people, because I do have so many subjects in this, but most of those subjects are to drop research and information, and while a lot of them overlap, I don't want to delete any of them because people have dropped different information in different subjects, but we're not generally chatting in these. Sometimes we do because we might somebody might go, oh, that's a cool idea, let's talk about it for a minute. So we might chat in some of these other channels, but almost always, all we're ever in is these general channels, almost always. And so there's ways to turn off notifications. You can mute channels individually. You can mute and only if you're mentioned will you get notifications, or you can just totally mute the whole channel, but you can just mute individual channels like up here. So there are ways to just keep it from pinging and overwhelming people and getting too many notifications. So, all right, back to you.
Yeah. But yeah, as you can see right here, this is the menorah. And so we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then your 9th is your shamash. This is known as your servant candle. So shamash means servant. So Jesus said in the temple, he was the light of the world, right? And so the servant is the light, the branch, and the stone, which is the cornerstone of the temple. It's just, I love how this stuff comes together. So I just wanted to go to the part there where it talks about him being the servant, my servant, the branch, and the stone. As the servant of Yahweh, we know from the prophet Isaiah that Jesus Christ came to do the Father's will. Zechariah probably has in mind Isaiah 52 through 53, because he says in verse 9, 9, that the Messiah will remove iniquity in the land. he is the Lord's servant because of his willing, patient, and perfect obedience to his Father. In John 5:30, Jesus said, I can do nothing on my own initiative. As I hear, I judge. My judgment is just because I do not seek my own will, but the will of him who sent me. He's the branch because Jesus Christ is the humble descendant of King David, who will bring the kingdom out of its fallen state and reign in power and glory. Oh yeah, see Isaiah 11:1 here. There shall come forth a shoot from the stump of Jesse, and a branch from his roots shall bear fruit. This is one of the other things that was shown once before. I'm going to bring my servant, the branch, Zamak, or literally the sprout. I've never heard it said that way. Zechariah uses the word simply as a proper name for the Messiah. My servant branch is exactly the same as Ezekiel's my servant David. The idea comes from Jeremiah 23:5, 33:15, where the promise is given that the righteous sprout, or a sprout of righteousness, shall be raised up to Jacob. Jeremiah used the figure of the descendant of David who will create righteousness upon the earth and the branch of Yahweh. The Messiah is going to spring up as a rod out of the stem of Jesse that has been hewn down, or as a root shoot out of dry ground. The branch denotes the Messiah and his origin from the family of David that has fallen into humiliation. The sprout will grow up from its original state of humiliation to exaltation and glory. In Zechariah, the deeply humiliated priesthood is exalted by the grace of God into a type of the Messiah. The removal of iniquity is exclusive work of the Messiah. The early Jews admitted that the servant of the Lord, Zamak, meant the Messiah. Calvin said he compares Christ to a sprout because he appeared to spring, as it were, from nothing, because his origin was contemptible. He's referred to as the stone because the rabbis said the stone occupied an empty space on the Ark of the Covenant and the most holy place of the Second Temple. Early expositors were also unanimous in referring to the stone as the Messiah. However, most scholars see the stone representing something already in existence. Hengstenberg says the unhewn stone, which is to be polished and carved by the Lord, is a figurative representation of the nation of the kingdom of God, descriptive of its present lowly condition, and the glory which is afterwards to receive from the Lord. Kiel notes, the stone is a symbol of the kingdom of God. The stone represents the kingdom of the Messiah King. We know from Daniel and Lord Jesus Christ is the crushing stone that rolls over the Gentiles, bringing God's judgment at the end of the age, which is what I think we're seeing meow. He is also a stone of stumbling for the unbelieving Israel. The statement, on the stone are 7 eyes, may be taken either upon the stone are 7 eyes, or 7 eyes are directed upon one stone. Revelation 5:6, the 7 eyes of the Lamb are the 7 spirits of God. And with the 7-fold eyes of Yahweh, they are the 7-fold radiations of the Spirit of Yahweh. The 7 eyes on one stone is probably the wisdom and intelligence of the Messiah or the Holy Spirit upon him. The 7 eyes indicate perfect insight and perfect knowledge and powers of the all-knowing, omniscient King. It's a bit like Solomon, I suppose, but more refined, perhaps. I'm not sure. The sin, because Solomon doesn't remove iniquity, he was just a judge. The sin remover, the mediatorial priest in Zechariah points to the mediatorial office and atoning work of the Messiah. Ultimately, Jesus Christ is the one who cleanses Israel and removes the iniquity of the land in a single day. The deliverance from exile shows that Joshua and his friends were smoking sticks plucked from the omnipotence of grace, from the fire of merited judgment. You're talking about plucking people from the fire, right?
That's right, from Jude.
So Joshua and his friends were smoking sticks plucked by the omnipotence of grace from the fire of merited judgment. So our wages of sin are death, but grace is when we're plucked from the fire as branches. Meow, meow. But this miracle points beyond itself to an incomparably greater and better act of the sin-absolving grace of God, which is still in the future. It is fulfilled in the coming of the branch. I will remove the iniquity of the land in one day, which is what they aim to do with this red heifer business, because you see what I mean when I was talking about it earlier. This was accomplished at Calvary when Jesus Christ died once and for all to take away sin. The wiping away of sin will be effected by the Messiah and will have to continue. The wiping away of sin will be effected by the Messiah and will not have to be continually repeated, but will be finished all at once. The day of completion was at Calvary. As he said, it is finished, the great work on the cross. Because it was at that point he embodied all the virtues of Yahweh. When he completed that act of dying on the cross, he then completed the work. Kalen Delitzchu. Note that the train of thought, Jehovah, quote, Jehovah will cause his servant Zamak to come because he will prepare his kingdom gloriously. Jehovah is the salvational aspect of Yahweh, for Yahweh creates and Yahweh destroys. But Jehovah is what we call Yahweh because this is when he extended salvation. I learned this again because of my name. Joshua means salvation in Jehovah. So this is when his Messiah was given. He provides this as a means of salvation, just like in Joshua 2, they give the red cord of salvation to Rahab, right? So it's a pattern that we get to see until the fulfillment of the Christ Messiah comes. This could refer to the first coming of Christ when he died as the sinner's substitute on the cross. He was the scapegoat, right, for atonement. On the cross, paying our sin debt. Moreover, Walford says it is more likely a reference to the day his second advent, when at the end of the future tribulation period, the merits of his death will be applied to believing Israel. The branch will usher in a time of security and peace, an actual true time of security and peace, unlike the First Thessalonians type of peace, which we'll kind of brush on in a minute. The chapter closes with a picture of the millennial blessing that follows the return of Christ. God's people are seen sitting, quote, under his vine and under his fig tree, indicating security, peace, and prosperity through the reign of the branch of David. That day, quote, seems to refer to the whole time of blessing which follows the coming of Christ. The branch is the Prince of Peace who brings perfect peace to those who call upon his name, which means salvation, of course. Because of this great day of atonement, we have the privilege of believers of coming to the very throne of God with boldness by means of the blood of Jesus, and have no need of any human priest or mediator. This is where the Melchizedek stuff comes from. When God just chooses people, right? He's not a respecter of persons, or whether you're royal, rich, or whatever. He just raises you up. Well, this is basically what Melchizedek is about. These are people he chose. That's why Christ is of the order of Melchizedek. Because of this great day of atonement, we have the privilege. Oh, I'm sorry, I read that. It is my prayer that you will let Jesus Christ, the Son of the living God, the Messiah, become the desire in your heart. He will give you his perfect peace right now if you believe in him. If you need help in knowing him in an intimate personal relationship, here is a free gift to you. So we just read to you the gift of salvation. It is a stone. So again, I really think that the stone motif we see, Goliath was slain by what? A smooth stone, right?
Right.
There's the Irish story of Balor being slain by a smooth stone. So we see this time and again. The stone is this weapon versus the giant, which is Enza. So what is our stone, right, to battle this with? Let me get this one off. Meow, meow. Oh, yeah, I ran across this too, because it's just because of my name, right? Well, I ran across this today. The second part of verse 25, I think this was I can't remember what chapter. Maybe it was in Matthew. Yeah, okay. So until Messiah the Prince was fulfilled when Jesus made his triumphal entry into Jerusalem on April 6th. That just happens to be my birthday too. So I had to share some of this stuff.
Cool.
But yeah, I know, man. It's wild. So so the reason I want to share this is because he talks about in his fig tree, right? Well, he talks about his return. He doesn't know, but the Father knows, right? Well, he says, but we already know the season, and he says that, when the leaves are yet tender, you'll know that summer is nigh. And so he's talking about spring, which in spring is actually when this 3.5 year, 1,260-day period ends that we see in Revelation 12. And so I think the man-child, as it were, is the bride of Christ. And what we're going to see is we're going to see the branch, the servant, Shamash. We're going to see the Shamash / branch / stone being the head of the bride of Christ here soon. And so it might very well be, I'm not the date setter. People go crazy over date setting, but what I'm saying is he did return on this day. And so I'm just sharing what the Spirit wants me to share, I think, because this stuff's too weird. I have no other way to interpret it. Anyway, and he's supposed to come through the east gate, which, by the way, they blocked that gate up so that he can't come back through it.
Well, they think, we talked about that before, which is really funny because, I mean, they must not understand first of all, that means they believe he's coming back. Second of all, They don't understand his power if they think they can just lock up a gate or stone it over, paste it shut, or however they did it, and he can't come through.
Fuskata! Shout it down, man, with the voice. So anyway, I wanted to share that too because he himself refers to spring. So I honestly think the fact that the 12 or 2160 days is going to end in spring. That's the 3.5 year part. We just were reading in Daniel about the 3.5 year mark, halfway through the 7 years, the false peace. This child will be born, but the dragon's going to want to eat it. Well, I think if we don't take the vaccine by April, are we automatically enemies of the state at that point? Are there biological threats, whatever? I don't know what they're going to start saying. So if it's not an actual, up in the sky rapture kind of deal, I think it could also be a reference to Maccabees because they were raptured out of the cities and went into the wilderness to escape the wrath that did come. So I just wanted to put that out there that, rapture is also an emotional state. It is spiritual, but it's like an emotion too. So imagine how you would feel if you were raptured out of the city right before something like this happened, all because you kept the word of God and you saw like the message, which would be on the branch. If you had the right size branch, you will see the message. Oh, sorry. I just get really into this.
You should not be so sorry. You should just go for it and continue.
All right, and then here's this other article on the Shamash. And I'm not going to bore you guys by reading this one, but it has a little more in there about the Shamash. And if you look at the very top, the servant heart of Hadassah and Yeshua. Well, who's Hadassah? You remember? That's Esther, man.
Okay, thanks.
So,
and I should know that too because I just read all of Esther with my girls. But she didn't like being called that. They had to be careful not to call her that.
Well, but the fact is that was her name, and it's just funny because when I get shown these things by the Spirit in the Bible, I a lot of times have not read what it's showing me, and then yet I'll find out that they actually connect. So it was just really cool that this branch business and Esther are kind of connected. And this talks about the preparation of the bride, and then you got the stone, which would be at the head of that. It's just so remarkable. And the Shamash, of course, goes back to dedication. So again, this time we're in right now seems very prophetic, just because of the timing of everything. But anyway, I'm going to get off this one because I didn't plan to read that article. This is the interlinear of Matthew 24. And the reason I have this up is, again, fig tree. Here's the word they're using. So let's explore this briefly. Sitting under the Lord's fig tree. And let's see here. Suke. All right, so the word here is suke, a fig tree. So this is the word they're using here in Matthew 24 with the parable of the fig tree. The fig tree which grows plentifully in Palestine as a wild and cultivated tree. The fig tree bears bountiful figs, ripening principally in the month of August. When do these? And what's he say? If when the leaves are yet tender, you'll know that summer is nigh, and that's August. Early figs ripen in June, which would be more like Shavuot. And then a later second harvest comes in August and September. So when Jeremiah talks about, summer is coming, we're not saved, in other words, he means he wasn't in the first harvest, right? But then there's a second harvest that comes in August and September, a little bit later. And so this getting into this fig stuff is interesting because one of the two favored churches by Christ, one of them was Smyrna, which is a type of fig. That's a female fig, actually. And so the other figs were the naughty figs, the goat figs, which we talked about that in another link ago. that was emblematic of July, which isn't in August, but still kind of close. And that's when they celebrate that goat fig deal. So just think that, I haven't did a lot of digging in this. But again, I just wanted to throw these things out there real fast. So we're supposed to test the fruit, right?
Barbara says she can't get that link to open for the mini manna moments, but I just got it to open for me. So it works. It's not broken, so I'm not sure why it's not opening on her phone.
It could be like a jacked up website, where they're old or something.
Oh, well, it came right up for me, so I didn't have any problems.
Yeah, it could depend on your browser or something.
Yeah.
Sorry, they work on my computer, so I didn't have any way of knowing. And then let's see, there was another one here. Let's share this. Theros is the word they're using for summer.
Oh, she got it. She had to type in the www part. That's in the link you gave, but she got it to work.
All right, well, here's the next word for summer, and this one is theros. And so, as you can see, it's pretty self-explanatory. Straight up means summer. So there's not a lot of ambiguity with this one. And let's see here. The branch, see here, let's check out this. Now that we've learned a little bit about branch and what that means, let's see what this means here. Klados, a young tender shoot, then a branch, met of descendants. Woo! So that is your Isaiah 11:11, your branch from the stump of Jesse and the root of David. So this is literally referring
Which
to
is
that.
why trees are people or sometimes kingdoms of people in the Bible often.
Yeah, man. Which, by the way, the word atesh is another you can find in Strong's. Refers to the backbone, the fat part of the back, like the bottom part of the spine. That in trees is the same basic word. So the fat of the land, like if you had a piece of land with a bunch of trees on it, that would be the same word as like your spine. So we are linked to trees in a way. We both have crowns also.
Mm-hmm. And if you look at the
Okay.
tree's branches, like in the excuse me, fall or winter, you know, when all the leaves are gone, it looks just like the branches of our lungs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And your brain has what's called an arbor vitae, which is a tree of life.
Right. Right.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, this stuff's all right there, folks. It's fun. Um, let's see. Let me see here. There might have been another thing or two I wanted to share out of this, so just bear with me here. Oh, yeah. Here we go. Doors. All right, there's a reason for this one. I have to jump around on this one because I got doors mentioned back in here. In fact, let me go ahead and just move that one. Yeah, there we go. Let's move that one. I'll do doors in a minute. And this Klados, did I share that one?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, 2798, I did. Okay, and then this is the one I meant to do. Thura, which is, door. I actually moved it already. I thought I did. Oh, sorry. I don't know how I got turned around there. I'm sorry for that. Anyway, I know quit saying sorry, right? Well,
yeah, we're doing okay.
I could say worse things.
That's true.
Okay, here's where to the part where it talks about the Father knowing the day, right? Okay, so concerning, however, the day and the hour, nobody knows, because I get so tired of hearing people say this. Concerning, however, the day and the hour that nobody knows, not even the angels of the heavens, nor the Son, if not the Father only, as were for the days of Noah, it shall be as it was in the days of the Son of the Man. And as for they were in the days those before the flood, eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage, until the day entered Noah into the ark, and not they knew until the flood came and took away all. Thus will be the coming of the Son of a Man. Oh, that's interesting. It's the same gematria as the name of Jesus right here, 444. Then will be two in the field, and one is taken, and one is left. Two women will be grinding at the mill, one is taken, and one is left. Keep watch, therefore, for not you know of what day the Lord of you comes. This then know that if he had known the master of the house what time of night the thief comes, he would have watched. Of course, we know if we read the parables, he sends out for laborers at 3, 6, 9, and again at 11, and not have been allowed to be broken into his house of him, because this also you have been ready for, in that not you expect. I'm so sorry, this is so hard to read. You be ready, for in that not you expect the Son of Man comes. It's just the interlinear is not written the way you would speak. Who then is the faithful servant? Again, but this may not be Shamash. So let's take a peek. Okay, let's see here. Doulos. Enslaved, a slave. Properly, somebody who somebody who belongs to another, a bond slave, without any ownership rights of their own. Ironically, bond slave is used with the highest dignity in the New Testament, namely of believers who willingly live under Christ's authority as his devoted followers. So it's not a derogatory term. We can see that.
Right.
Okay. So this is about being part of the lamb flock then, and not the scapegoat. And then this anthropos word, let's see, this is the coming of the Son of Man.
Human and mankind.
Yeah, which, by the way, what did Boris say that the vaccine was?
Did he say it was a
The
cornerstone?
salvation.
Oh, salvation.
He said it was salvation for humanity. So, in other words, anthropos, which, and I'm just mentioning this because I happen to know it, and I know you don't like gematria, but Jesus and Joshua both do equal 444 for gematria, just so you know. So this is something you probably could look into and drill down on, and refers to Adam. Interesting. I really like the Strongs. It really reveals a lot more. So I hope you guys don't mind me using the interlinear.
No, we don't mind.
And then I don't. Okay, Thura is what I wanted to do later. I don't know why it keeps taking me back to that. Okay, and that might be all I was wanting to do here. Point is, go to Matthew 24 and start looking through that stuff, because I think he's dropping us clues. Yes, we're not supposed to know the day or the hour. The Father knows the day because it's a Galilean wedding, yes. But, that's the point I was trying to make, is if we see Saturn and Jupiter as father and son, that's kind of something we should pay attention to. In other words, returning to inspect the vineyard, as it were. It could be any day, maybe sometime off from now, perhaps, but the fact is the conjunction is occurring on the 21st for 3 days. So I think it's food for thought. We should be paying attention to it, because it at least marks something, something we should be paying attention to. But it is at the 3-year mark, not the 3.5-year mark. So I think this period of time where they start the vaccines on Hanukkah and then plan to finish them in the spring, which we've just seen here is, referencing the first fig harvests, or, as they're being planted, the shoots are tender. They're harvested in the summer. So we're looking at something like Shavuot, perhaps, in August, as a possible harvest date, if you will. So whatever
I'll
that
try to get
could
my
mean.
bus done by then.
Yeah, you might be in a flying school bus if you're inside when it happens. All right.
Or I'll just be retreating out of the city.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. Either way, it's a rapture either way, because if we're being told, and what does coming out of her Babylon, yes, come out of her ways, but it could also mean physically leave the cities.
I think
it says,
so.
Come out of her, my people. Flee out of her.
I think that's a part of it.
Now that said, Elijah was taken up, and he knew he was going to be taken. And he had fled into the wilderness among the trees from Jezebel, but then was afterwards taken. And so he tossed his mantle to Elisha, right? Who was plowing with oxen. Well, we're in the year. The Hebrew year is represented by Aleph, Shin, Nun, and then that basically means like voice of the ox. It's represented by the ox. So I kind of find that interesting as well. Just a little side note there. But I'm going to go ahead and close Matthew 24 for now, just so we don't get hung up on time. I wasn't going to read from Maccabees. However, I did want to share it just in case somebody hadn't read it yet.
And if you have a Dewey Rames or Catholic Bible, it's in your Bible.
Yes, and remember, Antiochus Epiphanes, his name means God manifest. And in a few days, usually the first week of January, is the time of Epiphany, which is supposed to be the conception of Christ. But that's what the Orthodox Catholic Church practices Epiphany instead of Christmas or Hanukkah. They do Epiphany. But I just find it interesting because it's very close to the same word and it means the same thing, manifestation. And that's when Cicada usually drops their puzzles. If they do one for the year, it always happens during Epiphany. And I think they've been warning us about Epiphany, if you know what I mean, because they also warned us about this virus in general. So, and here's another thing to mention about the cicada, the noble cicada. I do love them. So they lay their eggs in branches. So when they're released upon the trees, right? Some of them they're harmful to, some of them they're not, but they lay their eggs nevertheless in the branches. And so the branch becomes the fruit, and it drops to the ground with a wind, a ruach, then comes, shakes the trees, they drop the cicada. The cicadas start to cycle all over again and go into the earth. So Joel references these locusts, and because of their cycles, it's very important, I think, to go back to that and mention it, because the life cycle itself reveals some wisdom. And this was, of course, a 17-year cicada. So, and I could get into that a little more, but I just wanted to make that point that they're types of fruit, if you will, because we're going to get into the seed thing a little bit too. If I shared it, I might have forgot to share that part. All right, Maccabees off. Okay, let's talk about charagma real quick, because this is basically the word for mark is charagma. And so we're going to read about this real quick, because people keep wanting to say it ain't the vaccine. Well, folks, let's read about charagma. The word charagma is a Greek word. Again, we're dealing with Greek, found in the Latin text. Antiochus Epiphanes is Greek. Latin text of the time of Christ. In the Greek concordances, it is listed as 5480, charagma, from the same as charax, from charasso, to sharpen to a point, as in mark or graven. A stamp, an imprinted mark. Of the mark stamped on the forehead or the right hand as a badge of the followers of the Antichrist, the mark branded upon horses, thing carved, sculpture, graven work of idolatrous images. To engrave anything in clay, charax, would be used. The Romans would call objects with names or identifying marks charagma or chagmarate. Even tesserae, meaning tile, were tokens that could be engraved of clay or lead, or even bronze or stone. There were many examples throughout history of the use of such items to identify individuals. These tokens became evidence of your entitlements in the world of Rome, or in other words, you can't buy, sell, or trade without the mark. In our time, with Rome, as it were. In ancient times, the fathers or elders of a household gave tessera hospitalis as gifts to identify trusted friends or servants of the family, called tessera hospitalis. These tiles were hereditary and responsibilities descending from generation to generation. That's pretty cool. The tessera hospitalis was a token of mutual hospitality and spoken of under hospitum. The token was probably, in many cases, of earthenware, having the head of Jupiter Hospitalis stamped upon it. We're given flint. The word put between our eyes, the frontlets for your eyes, is flint, as opposed to a pottery fragment, I guess. Okay, the same systems were used to provide government welfare. It is clear. You mean like universal basic income?
Yeah.
Or God knows what else? Probably anything.
Health insurance for everyone.
It is clear that these are almost precisely the duties and practices devolving upon members of our own great benevolent societies at the present time, when appealed to by the citizens in distress. Many societies became dependent upon elaborate systems of taxation, which required systems of identification of members or citizens. And that said, we had a census this year, folks. So for the conception sign of Christ to appear in the sky right now during the Hanukkah period of time. Like, it would have maybe been around that time too. I'm not sure. Maybe September. Either way, fact is, it's referencing the birth right now of something, which we're going to get into the birth thing in a minute. Okay, so I keep getting excited. Okay, but we had the census, okay, and the point I'm just trying to make was the last time that the sun was in the sky was 800 years ago, sure, but the last time it was of significance that we're really interested in was the birth of Christ, and they were having a census at that time too. Okay, so again, what are the odds, right? The odds are pretty good if God's in control. So many societies became dependent upon, I already read that. In Judea, Gabai, tax collector, collected ground income and poll taxes, while the Mokays collected duty upon imports and exports, which, by the way, I got a thing to read on Portunus. So we'll talk about that in a minute, because this relates to shipping and birth. On all that was bought and sold, they had invented taxes and reached into the life of almost everyone. There were taxes based on the number of axles, wheels, pack animals, pedestrians, the use of roads, highways, on admission to markets, on carriers, bridges, ships, and quays, crossing of rivers, on dams, on licenses, in short, on every variety of objects that even the research of modern scholars has not been able to identify all the names. Sounds a lot like the founding of our country, doesn't it?
Right.
They not only had to collect these taxes, but also had to keep track of who had paid and who had not, as well as who was a taxpayer and who was exempt or excluded. Among the slave citizens and residents, there were more than one status. They had many ways to keep track of slave and free man, as well as who paid and who was still owing on the myriad of taxes, fees, tariffs, including interest and penalties. Both the Greeks and Romans used small framed boards filled with wax or clay. A thin coating of dark wax was used for a brief or short-term notation, scratching letters and soft wax with a stylus so that the light-colored backing would show through. The tablets were sometimes linked together with rings, which was called a codex. There has always been two basic welfare types in societies throughout history. One is the free will offerings, and the other by force, which the god of forces is the one that will be represented by the Assyrian. Which compulsory vaccination sounds a lot like that. He shall make all get the mark, which, by the way, I wrote down a word that means. If I could find it, I'd like to read that word real quick. I took a note earlier. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, wouldn't know.
By the way, I did an announcement for anyone who didn't know that I'm now in a committed relationship, aka I have a boyfriend, which sounds weird at 42, but his birthday is November 3rd.
Oh, cool.
You were asking. And Trisha, I haven't gotten my package yet, but you just shipped it, girl. Like, give it a couple days. So I will get it, I promise. And I think you might have sent to my P.O. box, so I actually need to go check my P.O. box, because I'm sure NPC's got a letter coming from me there soon too, right? Right?
Yeah, man. Sending you some extra though, because I'm getting silver for the trivia show also.
Hey,
so there'll be extra in there for that.
What's the astrology sign then for November 3rd?
That's a scorpion, which is also a phoenix. So I'm glad that you mentioned this, because we're going to be talking about phoenix here in a minute, because in Acts, right here, that's where they take the ship to winter, is in Phoenix. And that represents the winter, the time we're in. Meow. So yeah, nothing's by accident, man. Even boyfriends' birthdays, apparently. So anyway, we'll get to that in a minute. Let me finish with Charagba. The Tesseract Frumentary Enumerate were tokens given at certain times by Roman magistrates to citizens in exchange for what they received, a fixed amount of wheat or money. This was the original EBT card to obtain welfare in form of free benefits from benefactors who exercise authority one over the other. I mean, how is this any different, Aaron? This is straight up what they've been leading folks. This is how you're led into captivity.
Right.
Is because, you live off the government. That's what happens. So I don't think I read far enough into this to know if there was more to really read, but I really do encourage folks to get into this charagma business here and read this, because this seems to be what's up. Antiochus Epiphanes did the same thing. He was the first one to use his face on the coin. If you recall, the theosophic type names, putting your name and image on the coin. I mean, we've already seen something like this happen with the temple coin having Trump's face on it. So if we start seeing more of that kind of stuff, please beware anything with somebody's face on it, folks. All right. Okay, so let me get off this charagma stuff. Oh, I don't know if I can't remember if I shared this or not. I think I did. Thank you, website, preparingyou.com. Preparing you for charagma.
And we are getting prepared, and we are ready for takeoff.
And closing this one. All right, I wanted to read a little bit about.
You know what they're going to say now?
Janus.
Please have your tray tables and masks in the proper position.
Oh yeah.
Don't you think?
Taken off.
Please have your tray tables and your masks in the proper position. Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, in an upright position.
Oh, that's what they do say, upright. Oh, I was going with proper. My bad. All right.
Okay, so we're in the time and season that we're going to see this character manifest very soon, and I'm not sure if this is going to be the Epiphanes character or not, but I'm pretty sure it will be because, well, if you do enough research, you'll learn that this character here is associated with Epiphany and the cicada puzzles. So Janus is associated with doorways, which, we read about Jesus being at the door, right? So there's this character that is able to control gates, doors. That's what the name means, literally, is door. And so, we're in this birthing period and something's at the door, right? Okay, well, let's continue. And Janus would be Apollo and Diana, which, if you recall, sun and moon together is Solomon, but could also be this Apollyon character. So it's either a good thing or a bad thing. Not sure which, but probably not good. And so this will be your character that comes from the pit, presumably, maybe, I'm not certain, but prior to the demons being released from the pit is when we have, so this could be where the charagma comes from, okay? And if not, then, like I said, I don't want to make any definite claims, but it seems likely it could happen. And then what we're going to see after that is the angel from the east says, oh, okay, hold up. We got to seal everybody with the seal of the living God, which we now know is some bluish green color, as referenced in Revelation 14, verse 4, rather. Revelation 4, when it talks about the throne of God being like an emerald.
Can you share this page? I don't think you did yet.
Oh, thank you.
Or even if you did, share it anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't actually. So thank you. So, so this character bears a lot of similarities with some things we see with Jesus. So, it's just food for thought. And then if we keep going down, we're going to see, I'm trying to find it. without missing it. I don't want to fly through this article and miss it. There was an area where it talks about birth. Let me see, maybe I sat it up here somewhere. Yeah, here we go. Janus presides over the beginning and ending of conflict, and hence war and peace. War of the Saints, for instance. The gates of a building in Rome named after him, not a temple, as it is often called, but an open enclosure with the gates at each end, were opened in time of war and closed to mark the arrival of peace, which did not happen very often. In other words, these would be closed during their King of Peace, right? As a god of transitions, he had functions pertaining to birth and to journeys and exchange, and his association with Portunus, a similar harbor and gateway god. He was concerned with traveling, trading, and shipping. Janus had no flamen or specialized priests assigned to him, but the king of sacred rites himself carried out his ceremonies. Janus, which is another kind of reference to Melchizedek. Janus had a ubiquitous presence in religious ceremonies throughout the year, and as such, Janus was ritually invoked at the beginning of each ceremony, regardless of the main deity honored on a particular occasion. The ancient Greeks had no equivalent to Janus, whom the Romans claimed as distinctively as their own. Very interesting character here. But what I wanted to point out is that it pertains to birth. Now, this word here, when I clicked it, actually went to a link on childbirth and showed how Juno, who's like a female version of Janus, is also Zeus's, Jupiter, wife. So it's kind of interesting how there's all this overlapping occurring here. But birth is also a term used in shipping with ships, right?
Yes, it is.
So we're going to look into that right now.
And the canal and everything. It's part of that quantum grammar stuff, too. If you really get into it, they talk about all of that. But yes, go on.
So this is Paul arrives at Rome, which, remember, Janus is a Roman entity. Paul arrives at Rome. After then 3 months we sailed in a ship, having wintered in the island Alexandrian with a figurehead of Dioscuri, and having put in at Syracuse, we stayed days 3, from where, having gone around, we arrived at Rhegium. And after 1 day, having come on a south wind, on the 2nd day we came to Puteoli, where, having found some brothers, fellow believers, we were entreated with them to remain days 7, and so to a week, in other words. And so to Rome we came, and from there the brothers, having heard these things concerning us, came out to meet us as far as Appius, the market, and 3 taverns, whom, having seen Paul, having given thanks to God, and took courage, when now we came to the Rome, the centurion delivered the prisoners to the captain of the guard, was allowed Paul to stay by himself with guarding him soldiers. Whew, man, that is so hard to read. Okay, so in other words, they wintered their ship, okay? And I thought that it even said where, I mean, I know it says where here, but I thought I had read where it said Phoenix at one point too.
Certainly, it probably does, talking about a rebirth, if it's a rebirth, because the phoenix coming out of the ashes, and drives me crazy when I hear Christians, artists allegedly, sing about this all the time, rising from the ashes. They clearly have no idea of the pagan history of all of this stuff. But anyway, go on.
Well, anyway, the part I was looking for there was talking about the it would have said something about Phoenix. I found it in a text before, so maybe this interlinear just had a different word. Oh, and I forgot, we were talking about doors, so I need to kind of get this out of the way here. Thura. Okay, so I had it open twice. So Thura, again, this is when Jesus says he's at the door, right? This is 2374. I think I shared this already. Maybe I don't even know.
Share it again.
So he's at the door, right? Well, we see that Janus is also associated with the door. So there's
gates. You even
possible
said gates.
Yeah, doors and gates, which Jesus is associated with gates too because of the trumpets. That's when the trumpet blasts when they open the gates and all this. It's for each of the 12 tribes to come through. And the rivers, of course, have gates as well. And then, of course, there's the east gate, which he will return through. So there's a lot there with the gates that I think we could be missing just because we got to understand that they very much knew about Rome and Greece and things. So I don't think they use these things on accident. Just like when we learn about the feast days, it opens up a lot of things. I think when we take time to look into their culture, we can kind of learn things too, like the Galilean wedding, for instance. If you just didn't look at that, you wouldn't understand some of the other things when they're talking about marriage.
Well, I think if you didn't look at it, you wouldn't even understand a lot of what he's saying about his return and why he will be a thief in the night on his return. And so, but anyway, we've talked about that, so just to remind people.
And so here's another thing. Janus holds a key. So that's another reason why I think this angel over the pit could in fact be this Janus character who has a key. And so, he's at the door and he has a key. Those seem to kind of go hand in hand. So, but before he opens the door to the abyss, the angel of the east wind comes and puts the seal of the living God on the foreheads of all inhabitants on the earth that have their name written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So that's when he's calling us by name, right? Okay, so let me scoot over here to... Okay, yeah, so here's the part with John 10. So again, on this theme of the door, Jesus, the good shepherd, verily, verily, I say unto you, he that entereth not by the door into the sheepfold, but climbeth up some other way, the same is a thief and a robber. But he that entereth in by the door is a shepherd of my sheep. To him the porter openeth, which we'll talk about the porter in a second. The porter openeth, and the sheep hear his voice, and he calleth his own sheep by name, and leadeth them out. And when he putteth forth his own sheep, he goeth before them, and the sheep follow him, for they know his voice. And a stranger will not follow it, but flee from him, and for they know not the voice of strangers. This parable spake Jesus unto them, but they understood not the things which he spake unto them. Then said Jesus unto them again, verily, verily, I say unto you, I am the door of the sheep, which, by the way, Cancer begins on the summer solstice, which is June 21st. And so your June to the July, Cancer is not really a crab. Cancer represents the beehive, which is the seal of Melchizedek. So, and Cancer actually is not only the beehive, but in some other cases, it's the sheep gate. It's the sheep. It is literally the shape of like a sheep pen. So it is representative of the sheep gate. So his shepherd comes from this Melchizedekian area, as it were, right? It's just phenomenal. Okay. All right. I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for his sheep, like he did on the cross. But he that is an hireling and not the shepherd, whose own sheep are not, seeing the wolf coming, and leaveth the sheep and his fleet. And the wolf catcheth them, and scattered the sheep. The hireling fleeteth, because he is a hireling, and careth not for the sheep. I am a good shepherd, and know my sheep, and am known of mine. As for the Father knoweth me, even so I the Father, and I lay down my life for the sheep. And other sheep I have, which are not of this fold, them also I must bring, and they shall hear my voice, and there shall be one fold and one shepherd. Therefore doth my Father love me, because I lay down my life, that I might take it again. No man taketh it from me. Harpazo, that's to be clutched tightly. But I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment have I received of my Father. There was a division there was a division, therefore, again among the Jews for these sayings, rather. And many of them said, He hath a devil, and is mad. Why ye hear him? Others say, These are not the words of him that hath a devil. Can a devil open the eyes of the blind? So, it's pretty powerful stuff right here. Did I share that?
Oh no, share it again. It's not going to hurt anything. We can double share, triple share, and the great thing about that is then you know it's been shared.
And here they even take up stones to stone the stone. I just can't get over it. Sometimes this stuff is just so hilarious to me. So anyway, there's the first, or the John 10 stuff I wanted to read. Just because, remember, this references the sheep gate, which is the door. So the door we're really talking about here is to go into the sheepfold, right? To the pen, while he goes and deals with the wolves and the goats, as it were. Okay, so before I get too far off topic.
By the way, this is totally off topic. My kitty cat, who's on my lap and being very cute, right meow. I bought him for Christmas, a little I don't know, cat tower. So,
oh wow,
just want everyone to know that not only, I mean, okay, not the everyone, don't get me for pagan Christmas, you bought your cat a tower. None of that. I'm learning about Hanukkah, but we're still kind of easing into it. But yes, so for Hanukkah, I bought the cat a tower. So maybe he'll leave me alone now when I'm on these live videos and he meows and jumps on my lap, claws me.
Could have got him a Hanukkah-shaped cat tower, or a
Oh, I
menorah-shaped cat
didn't
tower,
think of
rather.
that. Darn.
Oh
Maybe
my.
I'll put a
Meow
picture
meow.
of Trump at the top though, because somebody said Cat Trump Tower, so maybe I'll just get like an image of Trump that he can
Cat
scratch at.
Trump Tower. That's so funny.
Okay, anyway, back to
You
you.
mean for your cat to charagma at?
Yeah.
Scratch. Anyway.
Exactly.
With his
That's right.
pointy claws.
Yes. He needs to wear him down a little.
So this is the word thura. This is the door. Now, here's what's interesting is not only is this a kind of a tip of the hat to the sheepfold gate, but here is a reference to the wedding feast, and the door was shut. The marriage, and the door was shut. This parable of the wise and foolish virgins. And here in Matthew 27, we got the entrance of the tomb.
Oh yeah, and it turns out the parable of the
tomb.
Sorry, it turns out the parable of the wise and foolish virgins was 10. That's what AJ told me it was 10, not 7. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh yeah. There's 10 virgins total. But earlier when I mentioned the Esther, she was given 7 servants.
Yeah, you were right. I was thinking of the wise and foolish virgins, and I couldn't come up with those particular correct words. But anyway, somebody figured out what I was trying to say.
But what's interesting is after learning about Hanukkah, we do know that there wasn't enough oil either. So, conserving your oil so that you can even have the light to show, that's, oh man. Anyway, and one more thing. So because they didn't have enough gold when they retook the temple, Judah Maccabee and his gang, they forged a new menorah out of iron. So this child that we see that matures after this 3.5 year period that manifests and is given a rod of iron. Well, there's the menorah made of iron.
That's right.
Yeah, really powerful stuff. Okay, so again, we're on this topic of the door, door to the tomb, door to the wedding feast. He's at the door. In other words, spring, summer. And I read also that weddings traditionally take place during Hanukkah because of dedication. The word dedication. And so, people taking marriage in the day of the coming of the Lord, people will be marrying and taking in marriage and stuff like that. So, I think either June or, either Shavuot or Pentecost, rather, either Pentecost or Hanukkah, or these are two times that we'd be seeing weddings a lot of times. So that's something to note. Anyway, let's continue here with the doors thing. I just want to get this over with. Oh, the doors, man. Oh, the doors of perception. Talking about the crystal ship. The crystal ship is being filled with 1,000 drills. Oh, excuse me.
The actual band.
So,
Doors.
Couldn't help myself.
Were you a fan? Were you like a big fan of the Doors back then?
He's a poet, He's really... They just don't make them like that anymore, man. He died too soon.
27 Club.
All right, so then we have here the entrance away into door to heaven. I mean, you see this door stuff mentioned over and over and over again. The Gospel's predominant here. Luke 11, 13, Mark 16. Doors, and also gate. So yes, bears some heavy significance and similarities to this, which, by the way, remember Janus again is also related to this character here.
Yes,
which
Janus the gate person,
like
her
quinine.
Quinine,
which is also... Wait, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's so weird how many times this thread keeps crossing. So this is like your Q character. He's represented with 17 even. So I'm not sure how to interpret this yet, but it keeps coming up so much that I had to mention it. So please look into Janus, folks.
Weariness. You mean not quinine?
Yeah, but he's got all these different names. Same deal, though. It's derived from the same essence. So in other words, this plague, this virus, but also the cure for it. You see what I mean? Like, that's the thing I'm trying to get across there. Is it these weird yeah, speaking of which, now that I'm on the topic, let me bring this up real quick. Remember, we're talking about a possible Apollyon type character, okay? Well, we are in the year of the rat, since we're talking about celestial events and this, that, and the other. Oh my. Sorry, I don't know what happened, but let me get the link.
We forgive you.
Okay. There we go. The year of the rat. 2020 is the year of the rat according to Chinese zodiac. This is the year of metal rat, starting from 2020 on January.
He's like a death metal rat. Okay, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah.
He's into the heavy metal.
Rat is the first in the 12-year cycle of the Chinese zodiac. The years of the rat include 1912, 24, 36, 48, 60, 72, 84, 1996, 2008, 2020. We'll have the next one in 2032. An interesting Chinese legend about the ranking of the rat goes that the Chinese supreme deity, Jade Emperor, held a birthday party and would decide the order of the zodiac animals according to their arrival times. Originally, the hard-working ox departed early and should have been the first one to reach. However, the rat hid in the ox's ear and jumped down when arriving, occupying the first place.
Wow, that's a very smart rat.
Thus, the rat had since been the number one in the 12-year cycle and represents spirit, wit, alertness, delicacy, and flexibility. What's more, the vitality of the rat, including the high fertility and high survival rates, also make it a lucky sign for couples hoping to conceive. Well, conception, interesting.
of all years,
earthly
this year,
branch.
conceiving new babies. Because woe to the woman with a suckling child. But
Yeah, I know, right? But also the birth of the man-child.
okay, yeah, that's true. Okay.
So off the rat thing here, but let me show you this real quick because of the reference to this Apollyon type character. So I was actually reading about this city. And what's weird is I read about this a long time ago during some other research, but it wasn't until I rediscovered it that this really popped out at me the way it did. So this is a Grecian type territory, okay? Since we're still in the Antiochus Epiphanes type influence, this is kind of relevant there too. Hamaxitia. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but you guys can take a Google at it yourself. Anyway, what I want to get to here is not the hard to pronounce words, but the fact that it was also related to, let me find it, oh, here. Apollo Smintheus. All foundational myths about Hamaxitus in classical antiquity were related to the foundation of a nearby temple of Apollo Smintheus. The subject attracted much interest in antiquity because of the opening of Homer's Iliad and Trojan priests of Apollo addressing the god in vocative Smithian. When imploring him to send a plague against the Greeks because Agamemnon had seized his daughter, Chryseis had refused a ransom and refused to ransom her, rather. The epithet Sminthos caused some confusion to Greek speakers since they did not recognize it as a being Greek in origin and attributed it to the Pelagesian or Mycenaean languages. The consonant string nth, also found in places such as Corinth, is considered by philologists to be non-Greek and possibly Luwian in origin. What does that even mean? Hold on a second. Sometimes known as Luvian or Luish, an ancient language or group of languages wherein an Anatolian branch of Indo-European language family. Oh.
Bloodlines.
Anyway. The passage of Homer gives no indication of its meaning, and so myths about Apollo Smintheus primarily arose from attempts to acetylage the epithet. I don't even know how to say that word. Okay, so here's what I wanted to get to. So that was kind of like a preface of this. The history. So this was like a trade route, trade country. And so in the 4th century, they began minting their own coinage, which depicted the head of Apollo. So remind you, this is 4th century BC, many years after Antiochus Epiphanes, which is one of the first people to put his name on the coins and his face and stuff. So they started minting their own coinage, which depicted the head of Apollo on the obverse and either a lyre, symbol of Apollo, on the reverse. So this shows you what it looks like. Well, there. That's actually not what I was thinking of. It showed me a different one before. I've seen another. Maybe it's further down. Anyway, Hellenistic and Roman. So there's another part. We dip back into the Hellenistic period here. Okay, so I think that this is somewhat representative of this clay and iron mixing kind of deal, the Hellenization. So we keep going here. There's only a little. I must have missed what I wanted to show you. Where it was founded. Give me just a minute here to find it. It's where the earth attacks them. They were told to found the city where the earth attacked them, or the earth rose up and attacked them, or something like that. But the thing was,
Barbara's asking about you, and she says, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" But you do not, right? You just kind
I
of do
have
the
a
Discord?
channel, but I
Oh,
don't
oh, you
I don't
do.
do my own videos. I mean, I can have a user account, but I don't
Right,
make
but
videos.
right, of course you have the account because that's how you type and everything. But he is very active, well, pretty active in the Discord. And if you're in my Discord, he can invite you to the Discord that he's kind of head of, aren't you? Head of that?
Yeah, I do curate another research server called the Egregor, which means watcher. So yeah, I mean, I could invite people there too. We do research there just the same. There's a lot of content in there also. So if you get overwhelmed, just you know, just bear with us. Most of it's for research. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some channels where we do a lot of chatting. And it's well organized. I mean, it's well organized like yours. But yeah, if they join in the one, I can, and if they're interested, they just ask me and I can give them an invite.
Okay.
I really am sorry but there's something about the mouse running over this guy's foot. I just can't believe that I can't find it. I found it earlier. Let me see if I can. Oh yeah, here it is. Just it's always when I'm about to give up.
Never
All
give
right.
up.
When they reached the area of Hammaxtis, a great horde of field mice ate all of their leather on their equipment, and so they settled on the spot, interpreting the earth-born of the oracle to have been the mice. The myth thus glosses the term smithos as mouse, and continues on that takes into account both Apollo's role of god of disease and the fact that he was in precisely the role that Chysis invoked him as Smithian in the Iliad. So it's related to mice and plague, and he's supposed to have this ability to influence the mice and plagues. But they were told to wherever the earth attacked them, they would found their city there, and then these bunch of mice ate the leather on their equipment, and so that's where they ended up having to found the town. So I wanted to mention this because we're in the year of the rat. We know there's a Apollyon figure that comes, and the pit is what contains your creeping thing, your scorpions, your snakes, possibly even your rat, mice, who knows. So no offense to the mice and the creeping things out there or whatever. I'm just trying to show you what I've coming across. And so this is something we should be paying attention to, I think. And again, with the gate symbolism and the door symbolism, it's just weird.
Do you think Bill Gates has anything to do with the gate symbolism?
Well, yeah, man, because remember, who's that pastor? He's like this Brazilian, Kim Clemente. He, back in, what was it? I don't even know how long ago. It's been several years at this point, but he was given those prophecies about Bill Gates and Trump, how God was going to raise up a trumpet, which remember, little horn doesn't necessarily have to be a horn like pokey horn, but it can be a like burr, 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 blow horn too.
Right.
Especially if that little horn's shooting blasphemies out of it, it would make more sense to be an actual instrument type horn rather than a horn that we would normally think of. So the great mouth shouting blasphemies, this, that, and the other. Well, Trump did make some strange comments and about being the chosen one and stuff like that. So who knows? Maybe it fits him. But still, I wanted to make this all well known because I think that this character here, proceeds. And Janus had a counterpart here where it was. I read here about the porter at some point. I might have lost it somewhere, but this is what that was talking about. But as you can see, there's nothing here for this, unfortunately. But Portunus was supposed to be linked to shipping and things like that too, and connected to the Janus type character. So if we get into Acts here, where it was talking about the ship being wintered. That's where that was all about. So let me drop the axe.
Drop the axe.
Research that.
Just kidding.
Yeah, on the root, man, of that Jezebel. Oh man. So here's another really wild thing I wanted to share. We don't need no education. Oh, hey, you've heard that song before, right?
Yeah, it's Pink Floyd. Somebody was already talking about it earlier. Yeah.
Remember we covered the Wall comic from a Heavy Metal magazine? The Heavy Metal Rat!
Yes, from Heavy Metal. The Heavy Metal Rat. Yes! Oh my gosh, connections!
So that was way back when, and that depicted Trump his meteoric rise to fame. And, he had this group of followers even called the Guardian Demons.
They were the demons.
So, there's food for thought there, but here's something people maybe didn't know. So what's this word right here? Publius. Right? Well, that's interesting. So let's look into this.
Real quick, Benz wants me to say I have confirmation from someone who knew him that Kim Clement was actually a false prophet, and he says the same stuff as Mark Taylor. And I said, I'm with you, Benz. And he wanted me to say that out loud.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree. Anybody who's promoting Trump and Gates in the same sentence like that, I mean, that should be an indicator. But the fact that he's combining Gates with the Trump thing,
yeah.
I mean, we're sitting here talking about Gates, folks. So, that's what's up. You shall know them by their fruits. Now, I sat and thought about that a little bit. And based on which spirit you have in you, you manifest different fruits of the spirit. Oh, and so this is how we can know if somebody has an unclean spirit in them. Are they yielding bad fruit? Will the spirit in them not say that Jesus Christ is Lord? Right?
Mm-hmm.
So interesting how we can learn to test the spirits, but also know them by their fruits. What kind of fruit are they producing? Are they just saying mouth words, or are they actually producing some fruit? So different spirits have a lot of different abilities, in fact. But the 7 virtues of the Holy Spirit, they don't get into that stuff like divination and stuff. But there are examples of, like Joseph, for instance, was he used divination in a cup. So I think there are instances where somehow Yahweh might choose to communicate with people in certain ways, and maybe that's why it was not okay to do it with other spirits, because then they would mislead, they become possessed, so on and so forth. But it's just interesting because Joseph happened to have that type of ability, it seemed. I'll find that in another time, but I didn't have it for tonight. Had way too much to cover. But anyway, sorry, I got off track. So this Poplios is this Publius Enigma. Oh, wow. An inhabitant of Malta. I never knew what that meant. This is so
Malta,
strange.
like the Maltese cross of the Jesuits?
Yeah, man. Interesting. So of Latin origin, apparently popular. Roman Publius, of the people. Roman name of chief magistrate. But see Dr. Wolseley's addition to the article, Publius is an island in Malta. Well, this is quite intriguing. Well then, let's go ahead and show you then why this makes sense. The father of Publius. Okay. Not to mention he's suffering from fevers and stuff. Well, I ran across this a while back. The Publius Enigma. So this was an internet phenomenon, an unsolved problem. This is basically Pink Floyd put this out as a puzzle, a riddle, during the time of the Division Bell.
Oh, yeah. Now, so that was a good album, I thought, back then.
Well, it's interesting because Matthew 10:34, Jesus says, "Think not that I come to send peace, but a sword, for he comes to divide."
Yes.
So I kind of wonder here, if that's part of this too, like a division of the sheep into the sheep gate, into the sheepfold, and then your division of scapegoats and the sheep.
That was a weird album cover too. Like really kind of, it was like two, looked like the Virgin Island like statues a little bit, but rounded heads, and they each were facing each other, kind of like a one eye symbolism maybe.
Let me read this message, because this is some pretty weird stuff. It just started out with the message. "My friends, you have heard the message Pink Floyd has delivered, but have you listened? Perhaps I can be your guide, but I will not solve the enigma for you. All of you must open your minds and communicate with each other. And this is the only way the answers can be revealed. It may help you, but I may help you, but only if obstacles arise. Listen, read, think, communicate. If I don't promise you the answers, would you go? Publius." So this kind of reminds you of Q, right? A little bit. A follow-up.
Did you drop the link for that?
Message. Oh, maybe not. And there's some videos on YouTube that can cover this too. Give me a second to find you sent a chat.
Yeah, that's the picture from the album.
Oh, yeah. It's like two targets in the eyes.
Yeah, it's really weird. And then there's like some city or castle behind it, and the lights and between the mouth, and I guess I forgot they were metal structures, but creepy.
Yeah, I didn't notice that before. That looks like Janus. That's really weird.
Yeah, out in a field. Man. Like a cornfield or something.
Oh yeah, harvest for the harvest. Okay, so
yeah, you said targets for eyes, didn't you? Did you say that? Targets for okay.
Looks like you could shoot them and they would spin.
That's what it looks. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Here's the next message. As some of you have suspected, the division bell is not like its predecessors, although all great music is subject to multiple interpretations. In this case, there was a central purpose and design solution. For the ingenious person or group of persons who recognize this and where this information points to, a unique prize has been secreted. How and where? The division bell. Listen again. Look again. As your thoughts will steer you, leading the blind, while I stared at the steel in your eyes. Lyrics, artwork, and music will take you there. In order to refute the ensuing skepticism, Publius agreed to provide proof of authenticity on July 16th when he delivered a prediction to validate the trust of those who believe, as well as to reconcile the doubt of others. I've gone to great lengths to plan the following display of communication. Monday, July 18th, East Rutherford, New Jersey, approximately 10:30 p.m. Flashing white lights. There is an enigma. Trust. And then, of course, that night on stage, the stage spelled out Enigma Publius.
Oh, kidding. That's crazy.
Yeah, so they were like interacting with their fans through this. Now, what's very interesting about this is when the internet was just starting, and you had to go in and do like proxies and encryption. I mean, it was a big deal to even get in and participate in this. So it was like a predecessor of Cicada. Honestly, I think it was probably a lot to do with it. And let me see. Oh yeah, because then there's the Q and A part. I forgot all about that. And he says something in one of these interviews that really stood out to me. Oh yeah. Well, this is it actually. Okay. Who is Publius Enigma, and what is the meaning of it all, and what is the treasure to be had? Answer: Uncle Custard, as the infamous Q has emphasized.
Oh my.
You humans are so limited. This is a project for all those out there with higher IQs.
Oh my gosh.
Cicada says, searching for intelligent people. It does not require mastery of diverse languages, along with a lot of spare time. Now get with it. The lights were brighter, The meaning is worn inside out. The bell has tolled, and the surrogate band is coming back to life. The answer lies non-linearly within the paradox of the theme of the division bell. Communication breakdown. Hint, watch the Learning to Fly video. Ooh, interesting. It may also involve an
That's
anomaly.
one of my favorite songs.
And
Time
another
space.
guy that covered this puzzle says that Foo Fighters had a song that was similar to that they were like the spiritual successors of Pink Floyd, and that the Learn to Fly video was some type of...
Which is like the worst song that was ever made, but okay.
But there was some type of homage to this. It may also involve an anomaly in the space-time continuum, which, by the way, Foo Fighters is kind of about spaceships anyway, that term is. There is an obvious solution, and you do not need to be a Floyd historian to figure it out. Winners will receive official entry into the Men's Society and some dry ice to cool down all those neural pathways in your brain. It is important to note that neither I nor anyone involved with this design will enter into any correspondence on this topic. It is a puzzle for you, devised by one who loves you enough to drive you mad. Besides, I'm much too busy creating crop circles and executing think tank projects for the Pentagon. Although the answers given by Uncle Custard over the years have been written by several different people affiliated with the magazine, this particular response has been attributed to former editor and final publisher of the printed version of Brain Damage, Jeff Jensen. The accuracy of the content to this answer and under what authority, if any, Jensen had to reproduce it remains unclear. It all is right there, folks. Just have fun with that.
That is pretty interesting because it talks about, I want to mention how it talks about that, you don't need to know a bunch of languages or have a bunch of time. And isn't that some of these supposed anons or whatever? They're like trying to figure it out in every which way, every decoding and doing, I'm decoding this and decoding that. And they have like a lot of time on their hands. And it's kind of funny that they say it's not really what's required.
Well, and that's the thing. You just have to have the eyes to see and the ears to hear. And it's the same thing with Cicada. Which, like I told you, I mean, even if that's not what they wanted it to do, it led me to where I'm at now. So, in a lot of ways, it's just, I don't know, these puzzles are really strange. But I needed to share that because that was, I ran across it when I was studying Acts 28, which was talking about wintering in the harbor. And then what do you know? Here we go with Publius and the Q thing again. So I had to bring that up.
I'm glad you did.
Not to mention Q is associated with 17, which is also associated with Janus. So it's like this loop that keeps running in on itself. I am a strange loop. Okay, and then right here is the time of year that we are in. Is this? This is one of the windows in my bedroom, by the way. So I'm pointing at this. This is summer with the lion. So this is your June 21st. Royal Arch in heaven, Shavuot, okay? And then this is your spring with your ox. This is your fall with Virgo. And then this would be your winter with the what would be a scorpion, or the evolved version of scorpion, which is an eagle, or the evolved final version of eagle, which is a phoenix. Now, how can you tell the difference between an eagle and a phoenix? Well, phoenixes have a plume on top of their head, whereas eagles do not. So we can tell this definitely without any doubt that this is a phoenix. So when I was reading Acts and it's talking about wintering, they went to Phoenix. But when I was looking in the interlinear, for some reason I couldn't find it. So if you look into Acts, again, the one I dropped earlier, if you look into that and you find the Phoenix, let me know what you think, okay? But this is definitely a Phoenix representing winter time. And so, which would also incidentally be our Hanukkah time. So, and of course, this represents the four corners of creation, your four winds, Yod He Vav He, Alpha and Omega. It's really interesting when you look at it. And then you got your thorns even going around here. Anyway, yeah, so.
And is that like crown above it or fire, you think? Flames or crown looking stuff?
Well, I think what's interesting is these flames represent your basically the authority. I've seen a lot of pictures where you'll see a character holding a bolt, like a bolt of lightning or a bolt of firebolt. And I realize now that it represents authority over the spirits. And so if they hold just one Vajra, then they control just some portion of the spirits, which you go from 1 to 72 or 1 to 360. Either way, each of these decans represents a different spirit, a different kingdom. And so, as you can see, these four animals represent, these are the kings over these kingdoms as they change. So this character over the pit, this would be winter. So that's why we have Epiphany in the dead of winter. So that character has spiritual authority. That king of the abyss, this character here, I'm pretty sure, is the person, or the entity rather, that has authority over the pit. Which, if you look, the cross is this. Okay. So you got the cross. You only had 3 required feast days. You had the Day of Atonement, which is here. You had Shavuot, which is here. And you had unleavened bread, which was here. So you had 3 required feasts throughout the year, but you had others. This relates to the menorah also. But you didn't have them in the winter except with Hanukkah, which this is the lamp stand, as it were. So the pit and death and the work on the cross that was done to defeat death, he even descended into hell. So he became, he got authority, keys, as it were. So I haven't worked out all the fine details of how all that works out, but as you can see, this does fit in very nicely with the menorah and the cross, and it's quite remarkable. Anyway, let me get off this real quick.
Okay, just to let you know, it's 8 minutes after 7 my time, 8 minutes after 9 your time.
Oh, well, we can fly through the rest of this.
Okay, great.
Okay, so this expands a little bit on the, Acts 28:11. Here we go. And after 3 months were departed in the ship of Alexandria, which had wintered in the isle, whose sign was Castor and Pollux. So, we're having a Geminid. Gemini is Castor and Pollux. We're having Geminid meteor shower right now, since Friday. So when Hanukkah started, we have a Geminid meteor shower also, by the way. So let me just share this since we don't have a lot of time to go through it anyway. And there was a part 2 to this. And what's really cool about this is this site talks about there's a part in John, I think it is, or Second Peter. So let me just see if I can search for that. Yeah. Until the day dawn and the day star arise in your hearts. Well, Nick Vanderlane had covered this a while back, and we see right here that in the time of Shavuot this past year, we had Venus going through the Pleiadian constellation and between the horns of Taurus, which Aldebaran, did I discuss recently how this is the red eye of the bull?
Not recently.
Oh, well, I'll need to cover that at some point. So this is a big red star known as Aldebaran. And from what I can gather, what's this say? The leader of the covenant, Messiah, Yahshua, Isaiah 55:3-5. Also NWO, false beast leader in Revelation 13. So remember, we're in the Aleph Shin Nun, so the voice of the ox. So we will, with all probability, see some type of voice of the ox. But what's weird about this is the Alpha Centauri, Alpha Tau. So this is Aleph Ta. That's Alpha Omega. So I find that really wild. Really, really wild. So anyway, this website has this on it, I'm pretty sure. So, but remember, we had the Comet Atlas going through here at the same time. And then Atlas, of course, is the father of the 7 muses. And so we also had 7 handmaids to the Esther. And then there's a few verses like in Amos and maybe in, I can't remember where the others are, but in the Bible it does mention Orion and the Pleiadians. And it talks about the bands of Orion and loosening the chains of the Pleiadians, I think is what it says. So this refers back again, I think maybe in Daniel when it talks about the tree and it had been banded as well. So I think that what we're about to witness is this Orion type character. If you recall the June 21st eclipse, so we're having an eclipse today, but we had an eclipse right here on June 21st. The eclipse occurred right here. And so prior to Venus going through Pleiades, which happens every 8 years, and going between the horns of the bull, we also had an eclipse here on the 21st of June. Now, what makes this a fulfillment of 2 Peter 1 is, 2 Peter 1:19 rather, is that Venus is the evening star until it becomes the morning star. So it's Hesperus until it becomes the morning star, which is Phosphorus. Well, it did this on this particular day, which was also Shavuot, and which is when Jesus also refers to himself as the light of the world. So we should really take into consideration this text right here and how it fits in with what happened here on Shavuot. So go back and look at the Shavuot 2020 and the alignment of Venus and Hesperus and Phosphorus, and then you'll be able to learn a little bit about that. Venus is both Hesperus and Phosphorus, but what we do learn though is that Lucifer fell and and seems to have been replaced by whatever station he had was replaced. So but it falls as he goes toward, maybe it's the morning star and then becomes the evening star. I can't remember which way it is, but the essential point I'm trying to get across here is that it represents like the fall and then the rise of the evening morning star, because it's kind of confusing sometimes because it's actually referring to the same planet. Just 2 different times of the year. But anyway, Nick Vanderlane pointed out how this was a fulfillment of this because it's the time of year that this became the morning star was on that particular day. So anyway, I think I shared these already, didn't I?
Doesn't matter if you share it twice.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I keep forgetting that. Spamming my own chat. Okay, and let's get this one just in case it didn't, because that's a 2-parter. And all right, here's the interlinear of 2 Peter 1. And I don't remember if there was anything in there that I needed to point out in particular. Oh, yeah. But they do talk about the lamp shining in a dark place until this day shall have dawned, and the morning star shall have arisen in the hearts of you. this first, knowing that any prophecy of Scripture of its own interpretation, not is, that's too hard to read. In other words, it sounds like Pentecost is what it sounds like, which is why I think he was saying that it was fulfilled, because it happened on the day of Pentecost when the day star rises in the heart of those who believe, is what it's basically saying, without me butchering it. So read that one. And okay, Pillars of Enoch. This is a good article too, but it's long. But I wanted to show this because the traditional depiction of an eclipse like this is that it also represents a wedding ring. This particular feature is known as like a Bailey's bead, and it's what happens when you finally see the complete eclipse. You only get these on total eclipses, I think. But it's like the diamond on a ring. And so that's also to represent, like, again, the Esther's preparedness, right? Preparing Esther for the king. So again, this could be another Bride of Christ type reference as we move into the winter. So, just wanted to point that out. And again, I went through short-term memory stuff. Okay, I didn't
share it again.
All right.
You hadn't shared. You actually had not shared that one yet.
Yeah, I know, but that's the thing. I psyched myself out. Okay, so I know we don't have time to really talk about it, but I found a really, really, really great article because I haven't fully understood the whole Esther thing yet. I was trying to, because I kept hearing people reference Esther all the time. And I was like, okay, there's got to be something to this. What's going on with this Esther stuff? So I found a really nice article that helped me understand it a little bit better. Because sometimes I'm shown something, but I don't understand it until months later. So I had to speed up my understanding a little bit on Esther. So I found a link to help explain that. And so basically it's broken down into some easy to understand parts: preparation for the king, oil and all that stuff. Mordecai is her uncle. And this is where I learned her name was Hadassah, but calling her Esther instead. But this has got some
Jewish
semblance. Name. Yeah, and she's connected to Yeshua, so we got to find out how. Well, that apparently Yeshua would be the bride, and Esther would be the bride, and Yeshua would be the bridegroom, right? Well, that's pretty cool. So now I understand why I'm being shown these things. So now Isaiah 11:11 makes a lot more sense with Esther. Now, in retrospect, looking back on the year 2020. But that's what's so weird about the Spirit. So I'd encourage folks to just ask, because you don't need to understand. Just ask, and whatever you're shown, just share that with people, and then usually you'll get fruit coming out of that. It's really wild. And then once you've actually had it happen to you a couple times, then Spirit moves in mysterious ways. Meow. Okay, but anyway, it talks more about the preparation and then the crowning of the queen, and then down here it has a conclusion. So I would encourage folks to please check this out, because I'm still learning about it myself, but it's rich. Actually, I need to finish reading that, so I need to open that one back up. Okay, and then this is the last link I really had to share. Eye of Wrath, Pharisaic Mysteries of 63. Now, I'll have to admit, I don't know much about what he's talking about in some of these cases. Don't know enough to agree or disagree. But this guy shows a lot of wild stuff. And so I ran across this because I was looking for the eye thing. Well, remember, we got Jupiter and Saturn sitting above us right now, and so that's the eye, the left eye and the right eye. The eye of Horus, left eye, would be Jupiter, and your eye of Ra, which is the father, right eye. And then of course this goes through here to explain some things about it, but I won't, run us long to explain it all, but I'll kind of zip through here real quick. So you can see it talks about angels and the Talmud, and the eyes are a reoccurring theme. It also talks about the seeds, I think, at some point in here. But this is a fascinating article. So the man done some work. I'll have to go back through it more slowly next time. But I don't know. I thought it was he had enough in here to at least share it.
Looks like there's some. That looks very knowledge filled. Gets into some black cube stuff. There we go.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So as you can see, this was just something I ran across when I was trying to find a little more information on the eyes. But so even if we don't know it, I'm sure somebody out there does, and it may not be the good guys a lot of times, I think, that know this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course. In fact, it's often the good guys that aren't sharing it that don't know it, because it's the bad guys that they know what's going on way more than the everyday Christian.
Well, yeah, exactly. Which is why I think these obelisks are really about the conjunction, because I was very much left with a bad taste in my mouth, having watched these buffoons try to claim that they were placing all these obelisks when in fact their story didn't line up at all. And I'm pretty sure these obelisks have something to do with the conjunction. Now, what? I don't know. So if anybody has any leads on that, I'd be really happy to hear it. But, right now, that's all we can say is that it seems fishy. What did the obelisk do in the movie 2001 Space Odyssey? I never got to see the movie. Like, didn't they touch it? Did it do something? Or
it's what it creates an evolution of the creature. In fact,
what?
It creates evolution. It's an evolutionary.
Just by being there?
Yep.
Good night. So I'm sure that these just aren't really special. I mean, they're just metal, apparently.
Of course not. But I just watched a movie on this kind of thing where the aliens come to planet Earth, and it was super cheesy, but it had Wesley Snipes, so I'm like, I'm gonna check it out because I always liked him. Don't judge me. Anyway, I'm like watching this movie, and all these people get taken up by aliens only to get advanced. They get advanced, and evolution is because of the aliens. And we've all heard that theory, and that they seeded us, and they're the reason we're even here, and their evolution, they're our evolution. And that's the same with 2001, basically, that it comes from otherworldly scenario that these monoliths would come and help our evolution. But the funny thing is, the evolution originally with those apes, they start like beating each other and fighting against each other for that's the first part of their evolution.
They get their intellect.
Yeah.
They get their intellect, but they use it to kill, just like when we ate from the tree.
Just like when the fallen angels came and taught us about war and creating weaponry and stuff. And anyway, so 7 minutes to Bible study, so I have got to go, and I'm so sorry about that.
Oh yeah.
I gotta go.
Oh yeah, they probably are casting a spell. Yeah.
And somebody, anyway, real quick, somebody said, so are we learning about the Kabbalah and occultism? I mean, there's nothing wrong with learning about these things. What's wrong with practicing it? So we're learning what connects all the dots all together.
Well, Kabbalah just refers to the tree of life. So I mean,
so
you can attack something else about it, but the term itself isn't.
The practice of some of these things is not a good idea, but you can certainly research it all you want.
The text is referred to as the Zohar. I'm pretty sure the Kabbalah is like an abstract word.
Yeah.
Anyway, Thanks for your time.
Yes, I appreciate you. And you guys, Friday with me and NPC and Gary Wayne. So be there for that. And sorry, I got to get out of here, but, Bible study is now in 6 minutes, and we're on the book of Matthew, and I like to keep it going.
Farewell, and watch out for deer.
Yeah, okay, I'm only going like 5 blocks, but yes, I'll take care to watch out for deer. All right, peace and love the Lord. Good night.
Farewell, mini meows.
Meow.
Meow.